No, see, the point really isn't to become one temperament. The point is to balance ourselves, to be the appropriate, to display the appropriate temperament in whatever the situation requires me to be. Sometimes the situation requires me to be an energetic sanguine. Sometimes the situation requires me to be an intense melancholic. When it's time to study, there's no time to be a distracted sanguine.
Yeah,
it's a time for me to be a focused, serious, studying melancholic. When it's time for me to set up an organization or work with an organization, it's time for me to be choleric and to get up and go. Right? Or when an injustice is taking place, for me to speak about it, it's time for me to be choleric. But when there's a lot of noise taking place and everyone's getting their comments in, then it's time for me to be phlegmatic and just be a bit passive right now and be peaceful and avoid conflict. So what did the Prophet ﷺ display? He displayed perfectly he displayed the best response to any situation. That's what we need to work towards. And what you see in the Four Khulafa is you do see, it's very interesting. Yeah, honestly, it's like very it's because Facebook full of vultures. They're all full of vultures. I don't know how you survive on there.
I enjoy it. I think it's a melancholic temperament.
Yeah,
I actually enjoy it. I enjoy it, but there was some situations.
It's vultures. And whenever you go, imagine what that does for your mental state.
Yeah, that toxicity. That explains a lot of my mental state. Alhamdulillah.
I'm telling you, bro, you gotta look after yourself because for a while you think that it's like, remember with our element, we find comfort in it, but an excess of it will lead to our virtue imbalancing into our vice.
But isn't that like my sanguine just coming out?
No, see, Facebook isn't sanguine. You see, Instagram possibly, but Facebook is melancholic. It's detailed. Like, well, Muslim Facebook. Muslim Facebook is all people nitpicking at words, and everyone's got an opinion to correct. To correct somebody. Everyone's correcting someone, and it's incredible. People write like essays, mini essays.
Yeah, that's me.
And you don't even know the other person's. You don't even know who the other person is. How can I speak to you if I don't even know your full name? Or I don't even know who,
Oh, so how about like statuses? All right, like I just do statuses.
Yes, your status is fine. I like your status, especially the rap boys.
I think you're trying to refute me.
I love that. If I was going to refute you, I'd write it on Facebook. Malik, what do you think? The audience misses that. But seriously, man, it's there's that, and then there's also this thing of that. Because of the fact that there's a comment or an opinion box, the fact that you can write your comment here is giving you making you qualified to comment. It's making you think you are qualified to comment because now I have it's like I can comment, but are you qualified to comment? How does a person actually be qualified to partake in an academic discussion where you better have studied this subject? Like if we were speaking about mathematics now and a science teacher was to say, well, it's like, all right, but you're a science teacher, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Right. Like I do this if I'm doing my workshops, like I try to stay in my lane. I try to stay in my lane a lot. But there it's, with the fact that you have a comment box, you are already qualified to give your opinion. I mean, we say, our 2 pence worth or 2 cents or whatever, but some people don't consider their 2 cents to be 2 cents. They consider it to be $200. And it's like, it's delivered with this. But then the other thing is the person who does know his stuff, his $2,000 worth is reduced as equal to the one who doesn't have knowledge. You see, it's equal.
Yeah.
Right? So the scholar's opinion box is the same as the one who does not know. On Facebook, they're both equal. That's completely, almost antithetical, maybe I can say, to what Allah says is those who know the same as those who don't know. You trying to tell me that that their value of their opinions is the same? I mean, that's my little echo at the end, but just to go back to what Allah says, are those who know the same as those who don't know? Do you think there's an equalness there in their opinion?
I suppose that's why also people say don't look at what's being said, but who says it. So
right?
it's
and you know, though that's something to factor as well, but at the same time, that can get a bit scary, because then there's a tipping of the balance, because then people can be so fixated on who's saying the thing, they reject everybody else's opinion, which is again now tipping, like, so, you know, like the solutions, generally you'll find most human beings have done this even without having a, you know, paradigm or something, even religion or whatever, is that most people figure out that I need to be balanced. That's too extreme still, because we still have to, does that mean we reject everyone's opinion and only take the scholar's opinion? Right? There's a balance in that. There's a balance, there's a middle road, is that you can share your opinion, just don't think that it's the equivalent of you if you maybe had studied the book, you know, or you had done your homework. You know what I mean? I definitely would. If I'm teaching in class, it's like, did you do the reading? You didn't do the reading. And then the other person has done the reading, and then I ask a question and two of you give me an answer. Who do you think is probably going to be right? Because that's the way the world works. Like, you do your homework, you're qualifying yourself for something.
But you said also ajiz wa kasal. There's two different, you know, approaches to this. So ajiz is what you know, it's a very interesting conversation. That what you said, ajiz is inability, and then there's kasal, not wanting. So,
well, kasal isn't not wanting.
Oh, not wanting. Yeah,
it's you know, kasal is it's like
being able but not.
Yeah, having the ability to do so. So just for those who are unaware, and I know we've already started the thing before the thing started. Yeah. So I was just saying, you know, in the prophetic dua, which the Prophet that he would say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal kasal. Right, that I seek refuge with you, in you, or to you from, being like incapacity, or, like ajiz is more like not having the ability to do something, right? And then, so like incapacitated or something. Is that the correct word? Incapacitated, I think. Yeah. And then the other word would be for kasal is laziness. And people misunderstand. Some people sometimes in the inability to do something consider it to be a laziness. So those who work a lot and now they're tired, they are labeling themselves incorrectly, because they say, oh, I'm being lazy right now. No, you probably should take a break. And there are those who say that I don't have the ability, but that's kasal now. You actually do have the ability, but you're being lazy. Did you catch that? You didn't catch that, did you? No. Do you think the audience caught it?
I think so. So what you were referring to is two students who come, and one did his homework, he read, and the other one didn't for various reasons. One could be classified as lazy, another one could have had a death in the family and wasn't able to read. Who do you take precedence of? And then I mentioned the ajzi wa kasal, which is very interesting comment on top what we were talking about archery earlier, and then he said ajiz is your inability to do something. So let's say ability to horse ride. I don't have a foot. I'm unable. It makes it hard for me physically to ride a horse. But there's people who have both feet, but they're just, you know, they
have the ability, but they don't do that. And so that's not inability. That's kasal now. That's laziness. So don't say I don't have the ability. Sometimes people say, oh, I don't have a choice. You probably do have a choice. You're just being lazy about it. That's kasal now. So the Prophet used to seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that. Right? But he also sought refuge with Allah from sort of like reaching a point where I can't do more. Right? You know, like where like exhaustion or something, you know. And then even then what he was saying was that even if you, for example, like we know a guy who does archery, and he's blind in one eye, but he still does it. Right? Because why? Because, you know, he's got that, and it's high himma, it's having high aspirations, it's, you know, that lofty, you know, that you understand that, you know, maybe I can do more. You know, like this is the thing we were speaking about the youth project yesterday. Oh, you missed that second section.
How's the second section?
We continued, and then I did a little wrap up at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we spoke about that's another conversation.
Because when I was at it, we were talking about burden and stuff. So it kind of relates to what you're talking about, like ability, laziness.
I mean the whole Well, the whole concept. The question yesterday was, what was it? How
would you define burden?
No, before that, I was in the question. The original question was on the board.
Is it a burden to accept your identity?
Is it a burden to accept who we are?
Who we are,
right?
yeah.
And so the conversation went into self-awareness and knowing what you can. That's what your point was, that you work out what you can do, what you can't do. One of the things we said to that was that there's your self-awareness of yourself, and therefore you make a choice based on your self-awareness. So one thing you realize was, the more I know about myself, the more I know what options I have. Right?
Yeah.
So then I can accept more of me, and it's not a burden anymore because I know my ability, right? So I lessen my burdens because I don't put myself in situations which are beyond my capacity. Or what we also then started saying was that, yes, that's true, like your self-awareness, but what about your parents who probably may know you more than you? And sometimes people think, but I can't do this thing because, it's not within my capacity, right? But they know you more than you, and maybe there's sometimes they say become a doctor, and you say no, I'm going to become a painter because I can't do medicine, and they may have an awareness of you more than you do. But what we said though, whether there's two sides to that, right? You can say no, they don't, right? Maybe someone can say that.
Yeah, that's what I pretty much said. Like what I found as well with some parents, they force their kids to be a doctor or whatever when they're probably better businessmen or whatever, but then it actually ends up being the reason why they want their kids to get into medicine is because they want to show off to other parents.
Yeah, and that might then be their self-awareness, and they're projecting their self-awareness onto you, right? So they want that, and they believe that they could have done it, so they want that for their child. That's how most parenting end up, people end up kind of just doing to their children what they kind of would have wanted for themselves. But I said scrap that for a moment. That's something to consider and have a conversation about. Like, do my parents probably know more about this? Like when my dad says don't do drugs, and I think no, it's not that bad. Right? It's not that bad. Right? I know better. Right? And then when you're 40, you're like, oh geez. Like this is what always happens, right? Everyone who like goes past 30, 40, they're like, oh, they knew what they were talking about, and I'm an idiot. But let's not go with that, because we're youth, or we're speaking to the youth. So let's not go with that. The fact that God puts you in a situation, God has more of awareness of you than even you do.
But the thing is, that's like an objective. But what if someone is in that situation, but they're not seeing it from the perspective of, how
that's
God...
why that's why when one of the things that you guys did yesterday was when it was a good discussion, and then so what you started doing was, after that conversation, it went to definitions, right? And defining what burden means. And objectively, the definition of burden, as you guys had mentioned, comes from Latin and the origins, theologically, he went into that. And I said, but why didn't you guys go into the Arabic definition? Using the linguistics apple theory, find out what worldview is associated with the Arabic equivalent of burden, because you're right. You see, the theory goes that we inherit the worldview of the language that we use.
Yeah, like in philosophy, like I did a course, they were talking about how the whole question of, can you attain truth because language is limited? Can truth be carried through that language? So that's the whole conversation of, can our language even come to sort of portray the truths of the world? So there's that conversation as well.
That's a separate conversation, right? That branches off from this. But even at this point, so that means that the language that I use has given me a worldview. If I use the term burden, I will see burdens as a negative, and objectively, subjectively, then I use my strengths and I overcome them. And that's why the chap was saying yesterday, but they're not negative. Burdens aren't negative because you meet the challenge and you overcome it. Right? That's a subjective experience, and therefore his perspective. Right? Yeah. But objectively speaking, according to the word that we used, it has a negative connotation, right? Because of its definition, as we mentioned. But why didn't anyone look into the Arabic? One of the kids there, he actually mentioned a verse of the Quran which he didn't further explore. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Right, he mentioned that verse, but he actually didn't spend that moment to check what's the equivalent of burden in Arabic. Taklif. And what does taklif mean? And we got into the etymology of burden. But even with taklif, you can get a whole understanding. So I shared it, but at that point, I leave the youth and those listening, and even yourself and all of us, is why don't we do that? why don't we see what the Quranic world view is, which you can almost say is Allah's view on things.
It's very interesting you
Which
mentioned
gives
that,
you
yeah.
a very big opening, because then what he says, and one of the, I'll just share with you, just for the sake of this discussion, that that taklif, the idea of taklif, literally the word even has the meaning of entrusting, and also overtasking. So objectively now, by the definition of the word, there's a positive and a negative. So the word is neutral with the positive and the negative, not the same as burden now. Got that? So objectively, this isn't a negative thing, which is allowing more for our subjective experiences of burdens. Already it's nicer to use. Well, right? The second thing is this then. Check the rest of it out. So he doesn't put this overbearing or entrusting. Right? La yukallifullahu, that Allah doesn't overburden / entrust you more than wus'aha. What does that come from? It comes from width and breadth, space, wasi'. So wus' means your, like, the space that you have. So just take the first part of that verse, la yukallifullah. That's almost like saying, like, you've already mentioned your taklif. So he's correcting how just look at the sentence, la yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. God doesn't overtask or entrust a person with more than what's already in their capacity. So what God reminds you is, it's in your capacity, if you ask me, in a sense, right? But and with all your experiential justifications as to why I can't do this, he says, that which I've entrusted you with and is your overtasking, I know it's overtasking, right? It's within your capacity. This is the belief. So, but if you're mindful of yourself, according to a secular, for those who follow this, those listeners as well, and anybody, I respect whatever you want. Those who go for a secular understanding, then mindfulness is you viewing you, right? And you making sense of you to your standards. And a religious mindfulness, what would religious mindfulness be called? Oh, maybe taqwa?
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
And what does that entail? Mindfulness, from a religious perspective, is I am mindful of God watching me. I'm watching God watching me. I'm mindful of Him being mindful of me. So then when I look at myself by a different set of standards. Not the standards I put upon myself, but the standards that He has set for me, the expectations He has for me, and the belief He has in me, because He said it's already in my wus'. It's already in my capacity. So He looks at me so much more greater than I look at myself. Right? And that's why He called us His representatives. Khalifatullah fil ard. His representative on earth. And that's for those who are listening, according to the Quranic understanding, right? We just read the verse with, using our brains, which is, if we could do that etymological investigation with English, why didn't we do it with Arabic? Oh, it's probably because we didn't study Arabic and we're too busy spending 3 years getting our degree done. And what about your 3 years on Arabic?
SubhanAllah.
But that also goes for things like archery. When you look at the word archery, from Latin language comes from the word arcos.
This is going to be good. Bismillah. I love this, man. See, etymology, yeah? When you get into this thing, you get worldviews, man, and you replace your wiring. You rewire yourself. You rewire it. You see, I'm going to just chuck this one in before we get, because that's going to open up another. I'm just going to give you one more, right? The word reality in English comes from like realto or something in like Latin or Greek, I think. Yeah, sorry. Which has the meaning of like matter or a thing, right? So reality is like a matter or a thing. So when someone in a little cute little show or like a movie who's like, reality is what you make it, right? The idea is reality is a thing and it's what I can make of it. right? I can make my reality whatever I would like to make it. What's it in Arabic? For those who want to follow the Arabic Quranic view on things, what's the word in, well, at least Arabic, let's not mention Quran, just Arabic. What is it?
Hal. Is it hal?
No, that's not reality. That's a state.
Okay.
Reality is haqiqah.
Haqiqah, yes.
Right? What's haqiqah come from?
Truth.
Truth. Reality is a truth. So when they say go make your reality, is be aware of, like, that sentence isn't, oh, so reality is what I make of it. Reality is a truth, and it's being true, right? Like, I can't, like, so this idea when, like, maybe like a football commercial or whatever says, or a t-shirt commercial or whatever says, like, you know, you can be whatever you want to be. No, that's not my reality. My reality is my truth. What are my truths? I'm a human being. Can I live underwater? I can't. There's impossibilities. Definitions, by the definition, the definition of definition, or at least the Arabic translation, will be had. It's how you define a thing. What's the boundaries of a thing? My truth about me is I am a rational animal, right? I have limitations that I have, right? Then ajiz and kasal makes more sense now, right? Because I know my capacity, right? Is it a burden? Can I play a piano? You know what? I actually can. It's not a burden on me. Someone says to me, hey, I want you to learn how to play the piano in 3 months. These days I got YouTube and I can do it. But the point being is reality is not as scary as as make-up-y as we would like. You know, you don't just make a truth, and then for those who are the children of relativism, there goes is there an objective truth, or is it all just subjective truths? And that starts to come into the picture. According to Arabic, there's an objective truth then, isn't it? Which is haqiqah and reality. But according to the other language we've just mentioned, the worldview of that is there's no, reality is not objective truth. It's what you whip up. The thing you make of it.
Yeah. What did you mention, Ahmed, about archery?
No, I was going to say, it goes in line with what he was saying. It supports that argument in its entirety, because with archery comes from the word arkos, which is bow. And archery in the West, when looked at, is always looked at the bow, the tool, and not the person. So they will try and change the tool for the job. So if the arrow, they'll try and spine the arrow, make sure everything's by the tool and not the user. In the East, if you look at okçuluk, streličarstvo, everything west of the Balkans, when you mention archery, you start with the arrow, not the bow. Because it's about the art of arrow throwing.
Oh, subhanallah.
And they approach archery from a person point of view, the archer, not the tool. Because in the West, archery is treated as a survival thing that you use to survive. While in the East, archery is used something to make you better as a human being. And it's not selfish, it's selfless. So when we say okçuluk or when we say streličarstvo in Bosnian, you say archery. It's like just in the West they say I'm a body with a soul, and in the East we say I'm a soul with a body. That's the whole difference.
You just take in for a moment. Those who couldn't even follow what I said or he said, just take into the fact that a whole worldview. These are like mini existential crises, right? Because you're like, wait, hang on a second. Have I seen everything incorrectly simply by the word that I used? Probably yes. And if what we've just mentioned here, whether you follow the archery or the reality or the other example that we gave, the point is wake up to words, wake up to the words that you're using, because even the NLP guys will tell you it has an effect on you. You know. And that's why what was the command according to, the Muslims will tell you, oh, that's why God said to us, read.
Yeah.
And that's why, Rumi was saying, listen. None of those guys said speak. I mean, not guys, like Allah. Like God said read. Rumi said speak. But Rumi said listen. And no one said speak. Because what happens, do you learn much when you speak? That's why I don't like podcasts and like radio personally, just personally. It's because I don't learn anything sometimes, like as much when I'm speaking, because what happens when you speak, you just affirm something for yourself. Others might benefit if you're speaking truth or beneficial stuff. But as for me, maybe it's a little selfish, but like how much am I learning? Whereas when you listen, you get way more. And you can tell, you can talk about archery. Yeah?
Our audience are benefiting, alhamdulillah, a lot.
Yeah, that's why every human being should regulate himself, and then I should go and listen to my teachers or someone who I can benefit from. I'm not a fan of podcasts personally, but I like Boys in the Cave. Yeah, you like that one? Just set you up, bro.
Yeah, what you said made me remember my teacher's advice when I was asking her, "How do I ever repay you for teaching me?" Because I was at the stage where I wouldn't speak. I was just listening. And she said, "Teach." So knowledge is, I think, nobody owns knowledge except Allah. We are only vessels. And the way that we either take it to our grave or to make it eternal is by speaking. So I think what you're doing is very noble and very good. Thank you for coming on this podcast and blessing us with your
thank
presence.
you for also speaking, and please speak over me. But you just reminded me of a poem by Maulana Rumi where he says, just a couple of lines where he says, "Was it I who spoke? Was I not also a listener?" Right? Like even in this very moment, like that can be understood in two ways. Was I not also once upon a time listening, just as you are now listening? Because trust me, anything good that comes out of my mouth, guaranteed guaranteed you can trace it back to one of my teachers. And any bad, guaranteed it's probably me coming out. So that's why I try my best. And as we've seen from our teachers, is
Just to give some context for the audience, there might be a bit like we have Mohammed Isaaq on the podcast. I know a lot of people would have checked out our previous episode, so they can definitely check that out. And we have Ahmed Karat from President of Maydaan Archery Club as the co-host. So just wanted to clear that up. And alhamdulillah, like it's amazing to have both of you guys on, just because I feel that we can talk about same concepts but in different languages. I don't know if that made sense. Like how you were talking from, your studies and the 4 temperaments, you have that lens. And then Ahmed Karat has that sort of same sort of concepts, but he's kind of projecting it through like sport and archery. I think that's, subhanAllah, it just shows how diverse the deen is in general when it comes to communicating aspects of deen through different modes, essentially. So that's why I wanted both of you on, because that's what we want to get to the bottom of. And just to kind of have you guys both on the same page, I did want to ask, because we know, like, for example, through archery, we're able to have that, like, because you would have a lot of people with different temperaments coming through. And we actually had a chat about this before the podcast. But in saying that, I know, Mohammed Isaaq, because I did your workshop over the weekend. And it was interesting, the second part you mentioned, one of the sunnah sports you recommend for clerics is archery, right? So then that kind of made I was like mind blown, because you were using sunnah sports and categorizing each temperament, what's best for them in order to grow. So could you probably elaborate on that concept? And I want kind of Ahmed to hear what you say, and then kind of bounce off you when it comes to archery and maybe cleric, and what your experiences with different temperaments as well. So why do you suggest different temperaments to do different sunnah sports, and what's the kind of
before you start that? I did want to just make a comment as well. I said to him, you are doing the sunnah in the mind, and we are doing the sunnah in the body. And I think this and when he said come, I said, mate, this is going to be excellent, because we're going to combine the mind and body. But the key is why and balance, isn't it? But and
if only Malik was here, he'd balance the soul.
MashaAllah.
But yeah, what's your
But instead, he's going to be balancing the soul. No pressure, kid. No, look, most frameworks are like tools. See, one of the things you said was that, you know, we both articulate, and you said the deen, but this isn't exclusive to the deen. I mean, you could almost say that we're just promoting healthy living, and then you could also say that's all the deen ever does. You know, it's like, it's almost understood as, you know, like deen, like again, looking at language, like how have people understood that, these terms, you know, like, trust me, we don't just teach temperaments exclusively. I mean, absolutely, we don't teach it exclusive to any one particular group. It's like, it's a tool that everyone can benefit from, you know. That's why we've had people who've come to our workshops and have said a range of experiences that they've had via temperaments. One kid got a scholarship for university. One lady, she got a job from the workshop. Another lady was mentioning her experiences with the Quran. She hadn't picked it up for a year, and then she was in tears. A guy just the other day said, he said, if I knew this before, I probably wouldn't be getting divorced right now. So the tools are the tools. There's many tools out there. There's many models out there. There's many sports out there. I just went with one which I benefited from myself. And you know, that's I mean, my point really, what I'm trying to say here is that, like, the tool isn't that specific. The 4 temperaments or archery, and these aren't like the end product. The end product is achieving your health as you should be. Essentially, you're right. It's just a means, and as a means, you know, maybe the way we've put the thing together, it works. But like, I genuinely believe that, like, in the workshops, personally, and it'd be interesting to what you say. But for me, when I see anything good come from any of the programs that we've done, I actually believe it's those who attended who had the right mindset as they came, and they actually used it for good. Trust me, I bet you there's people who come to my workshop. I bet you there's people who've come to the workshops and have probably, like, just not received as much, you know. And there's others out there who are like, literally have said, this has changed my life. I'm just saying, I got a text just the other day, you know. And there's another guy actually messaged me that he just said, I'm using it to help a training teacher become a better teacher. Right. So my point is this, that, you know, the human beings have, like, if you want to better things, you can find most models and find, you know, benefits in that model. Just don't become obsessed with your model, I always say, because obsession is a sign of, like, being imbalanced, you know. Like, respect and master your thing, but not to, like, you know, I don't know, you know, does that make sense?
How would that relate to, because in the workshop you mentioned you would for, I guess, a cleric to balance themselves, you'd promote archery. So why suggest that?
Yeah, back to the question, right?
Yeah.
I'm on a tangent. My point at that point, just to go back to what I was saying, just to maybe clarify for people, is that what I'm trying to say is that there's models out there, and what we then did was that we then, like, with this current model, that I appreciate this model, 2,500 years, it's got something good to it. What I realized, well, because even the 4 temperaments, I already combined it with other models. I mean, when people come to the workshops, I ask them about their lives, and I combine this model with the model of their lives, right? So they have a physical dimension, and so I combined it with a sports. I wanted to, you know, bring in a sports model of some sort. Now, models are nice because models make things easy for us, and one of the models is, as you refer to it as, you know, prophetic sports, meaning those sports that the Prophet ﷺ practiced. And now, and the reason I'm saying this is because it's not about getting obsessed with the models. They're not entirely absolute, right? They're just a tool to help you, and some of them are really good, right? I think that this 4 sports model is really good. I mean, if I'm honest, it's the Prophet ﷺ, so it's going to be the best. And then this one is pretty good. So to bring them together, it's just simplifying. So my point is, it's not just that a cleric needs to do archery. All of them need to do archery.
Yeah.
This is very important. Everyone should be doing archery, but just with that fiery temperament. Now, if you know your temperaments,
Yeah,
You're gonna
the audience would have heard episode 1, which was
right,
our
yeah.
first one. So
Cool. So if you look at the fiery temperament choleric is very active, and sometimes they can get too active, and too much activism can sometimes lead to them being imbalanced, and maybe, you know, like sometimes we see where people can't sit straight. You know, that's probably good if you're working, but what about when you get home, when you're sitting with your family? Like, you gotta sit straight, you gotta sit down, you gotta.
Yeah, it'd just be awkward getting up and down.
Right, it's just, you know, people like, you know, you gotta
trying to have dinner, but you know,
yeah, but you're on your phone, or not even just on your like walking around. Like, you're on your phone, you're still at work.
Yeah.
Right, that's probably a choleric who's bringing that work life into the home life. It's the balance is now you're at home. It's good to be a hard worker at work, but don't bring that into the home. So one of the ways that you reduce or you decrease that intense choleric energy, it's not always about decreasing. Sometimes you might need to, but it's about increasing your other equivalent, which is your water, right? The phlegmatic side. So the water energy. So one of the ways to do that is doing a sport like doing archery or doing
empty mind.
Yeah, something that's going to slow you down, that's going to empty your mind a little bit and you make you focus. You know, it's like a sanguine can also benefit from that as well. But essentially the point is, it's just breathing.
You would say
that's why I also recommend yoga as well for a choleric energy. Just do yoga. Like, it's, you know, there's just other recommendations out there for those who might be like, oh, I'm not a Muslim, so do I still follow the prophetic sports? Don't get caught up on don't get caught up on the nouns.
Yeah.
Look beyond that. Just, you know, see what works for you. And that's why some Muslims would be like, yoga. Don't get caught up on the nouns.
Kufr in the cave.
Right. Right. Don't get caught up on the nouns. And that's directly from the prophets. Well, not directly, but the Prophet said, "Inna Allah la yanzur ila suwarikum wa la ajsadikum, walakin yanzur ila qulubikum wa a'malikum." That indeed Allah does not look at your forms or your bodies, but rather He looks at your qulubikum wa a'mal, your hearts and your actions. That what's more important is your verbs rather than your nouns. It's not like who you are always, but it's about what are you doing. And that links back to that initial conversation about the two people, the scholar or whatever. Like, but the nouns are important, but what's also important is it's not always what's being said, but it's actually what's being done, and with what intention is it being done. Right, so the fi'l has a precedence over the fa'il. And if you know your Arabic, you know what Arabic taught you is the fi'l comes before the fa'il. So when you're processing things, you process it objectively with the verb, then process who was the one who was doing it, then process who was it done upon. Rather than, because if you're making a judgment, it's better to be a judge who's a little bit objective at the start with what was done. But if you don't go with the Arabic model, because in English you say Malik sat down, so the doer comes first. Now if the doer comes first, if making my judgment, I'm already affected because you mentioned Malik. But in Arabic you say sitting, so I'm judging correctly, sitting, right? Yeah, Malik, okay, on the sofa. Right, you see the difference? Now that's a basic example I gave. What if it was to do with killing? Right, killed, qatala. And then who killed? You know, so I'm making my judgment. Where's the adverb as well? Because the verb and the adverbs are gonna, you know, explain to you what's going on. But anyway, and that's echoed from, like, that's not my own understanding. Like, I've heard that from a teacher, so that's not. I don't want to claim that as if, like, you know.
And what do you think, Ahmed, about this whole idea of, you know, for cholerics, I guess, to essentially use archery to perhaps wind down and have that balance? And have you encountered such, I don't know how well you've known about the 4 temperaments, but have you encountered such, you know, fiery sort of people, and how do you go about, I guess, teaching it? Because you've taught me as well, alhamdulillah.
My limited knowledge comes from when I studied, and when I, to tell you the truth, what really attracted me to Ustad Muhammad was the fact that he goes back to classical texts, and he always looks at the classical versions. So when he started the first podcast he did, he said, Balghami, Damawi, Safrawi. I went, oh, I heard this in prophetic medicine. And it goes back to the text, it goes back to what the Prophet taught us. But it was, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and it was to do with like food and medicine. But I said, I never thought of it from the internal retrospective because I live in a body. That's how I am. I'm always in the body. And my thing is, I got to get to the mind. And I said, this is my doorway. This is it. I need to transition from my body to my mind to get to the next level. So the two key issues, the two key things you need to focus on is why and to achieve balance. Your why is very important, your intention, and to achieve balance. So I think I totally agree on face value, on the fi'l. Yes, definitely the fiery character will benefit from archery. But I said to you earlier, I said, I have the most problems with fire and wind. Teaching fire and wind.
Yeah,
Right, aren't those the two that I said?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And you gave the same reasons that. Could you explain the reason?
So fiery, I couldn't get them to stand still, and wind, I can't pin them down. I'm like, dedication, massive issue, like massive talent in wind.
Yeah,
but they just can't. They have lots of talent, but no dedication. And the two key things in archery: dedication and patience.
Because I assume they're like socializing and stuff. So for them, when it's like by themselves and they have to focus on like.
What the airy person will say, the wind one will say, it's boring. And the choleric will say, well, I got the target. Like, what's the point? What? Like, do it again. Oh, you mean like do it 6 times? Oh, all right, boom, 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 got it. What's next? Right, and that possibly may be a way of motivating them, where you can say, but can you do it 10 times? The real archers, they can do 100 in a row.
Subhanallah.
You see that because you're playing the fire, you're meeting it at where it's at
its strength,
at the
sort
same
of tempering
time,
him in a way.
That's it, bro. That's what it's all about. It's like you don't put a fire person's fire out. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to reject people. Come as you are to the model as it will refine you, echoing Imam Zayd's words. Right, come as you are to the model to be the best version of who you are. Right, so the fire comes, and that's literally like, I just tried. I might be wrong. Right, all the stuff that I've said, I'm just a human being. I might be wrong, but I just have from my my intelligence of my experiences of people. This is a conclusion that I came to. I consult my teachers from what I do, as we should. And that's the conclusion that I came to. The fiery lot, you meet them where they're at. With a sang, right? I'd say, but damn, you look good holding that bow.
Stroke their ego just a little bit.
Right. Do 10 more and I'll take a picture of it.
Allah. SubhanAllah, I can relate to this, I guess.
Right. or how about this? Why don't you get the sangs together and say, don't get the sangs together. Maybe pair the sang and the choleric, or the sang and the phlegm, or even the sang and the melancholic. But pair them, because they're social butterflies. Let them butterfly socially archery, as in they can still speak to somebody. Do you know what I mean? They don't want to be alone. They find it boring. So make it a fun activity for them, right? You're not just shooting a target. It's actually an animal, right? Maybe just draw an animal for them, right? How you getting on with the ox? Right, make your little targets. You know how it goes, right? You know your stuff. Make a little ox, right? There's the targets. How did you get on with that? Right? Because they want a little bit dynamic. See if you can get moving targets. Right? Reward them. Right? Listen, if you do well, maybe we can get you on the horse. Right? They got a target now, and then also just recognize their great strengths. Right? If they do well at something and they know that they're making their teacher happy. See, the wind lot, the airy lot, they're lovers. If they fall in love with you, whatever you tell them to do, they'll do it. Even if you say, go practice alone now. If you can refine and work with that temperament.
Well, I think that even like what I can relate to is that sometimes for other people looking at the fire lot, other people, like not just like in the context of archery, but also just you meet a fire person within a business setting or something. Sometimes you're just like, absolutely. Why are they acting like that? Why are they so angry or whatever? But how you're displaying it is that you temper them. Don't just
Yeah.
fight them.
As in, look, they're getting angry for a reason. Find out
Passion.
what they're getting
I think you're
angry
saying
about.
passion
Yeah,
in your-
find out
yeah.
where their passion is.
Would it be correct that you approach people as if they're a mine and you're digging for gold and silver?
With some of them. Others are trying to tell you that they're gold and silver. They're trying to give it to you, but you fail to see it. You see my point? Others are like, boom.
Self-awareness, I guess.
You guess it's just what I'm saying. First, you got to know your self-awareness, because if you're a watery type, if you are a watery type, then your understanding of gems is they're in the ocean. If you're a earthy type, your understanding of gems is they're buried underneath. So if you're a earthy, watery type, your understanding of any gem is it takes time to get gems. Watch the wind bring you beautiful breezes, a beautiful scents instantly. Watch the fire like that get rid of the dirt and show you the gold. You know what I mean? Right? That's so what happens is that's why you start. You see, he's a good student. He knows that what you do first with this temperament journey is you come to know yourself, because you have been understanding everybody according to how you understand things. Right? Once you understand how they understand things and you understand the lens in which you see. See, the main thing isn't even about reading them. If you balance yourself, if you temper your own, like if you work with your own fire, you work with your own air, you work with your own earth and water, then you will naturally be able to serve others. Sometimes people say to me, oh, but how did you know how to... I don't actively try to do it. It's become second. Like my aim every day, my aim is that I'm balanced. My aim is when we do this podcast right now, is we have a balance in what we do, right? So when it gets too fiery, we can bring the water in. Like we should have some water here. Do you know what I mean? Like you gotta, because you're the best. You are your best self when you're in balance.
Subhanallah. Ahmed, you also mentioned, because we were talking about more like, I guess, choleric sanguine in the perspective, in the context of archery. You also mentioned a very interesting part about melancholic and autism. Could you touch on that?
I have a student, and it again,
okay,
it's only there.
I'm just gonna I'm gonna interrupt that just for a moment, because I'm just gonna give one thing before you say, and I think you're gonna like this.
Yeah.
So if what we said is true, then according to the theory, archery would be a little bit more earthy as a practice. So what that then means is you get an earthy guy doing an earthy thing, and he is in his element.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
And when we are,
I'm just going.
And when we are in our element, we are our most comfortable and our most healing self.
Yes.
Our most natural balance, not the balance we hope to achieve later on in life, but our natural balance.
Subhanallah.
Go on, you're going to say something.
Absolutely. So,
example.
When he said fire and archery, I said, but all my earthy and watery types, when they do archery, because they're very introverted, you will see them pick up their pace, walk with a spring in their step, and start conversating with people. Beautiful. It's amazing. We had actually a breakthrough. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Could you give a bit more information about the person?
Well, there was two brothers. They were both autistic, to my knowledge. I didn't know at the time. I was giving an advanced lesson, and this 11, 12-year-old walks up to me and he goes, "Who's in charge?" Just bang. And I looked at him, and part of me was like so proud, and another proud.
Type, by the way?
So two brothers, one fire, one water. Complete opposites. Both autistic in a different way. One is hyper, and one is just completely shut off.
So the fiery one went up to you.
The fiery one walks up to me, goes, "Who is in charge?" And he made me stop. That's what impressed me about him. He had such confidence that he actually made me stop what I was doing and turn to him. And I wouldn't answer him until he gave me his name. And I kept repeating. And he said, "Look, I need to know who's in charge. I've got people waiting. I need to know who's here." Ultimately, it was three brothers joining a beginner's class later. One of them was over-dominant over the others. So I made myself not know their names. I made them repeat names. And I always noticed the fiery type would answer questions for them. He wouldn't let them talk. Until at the end of the session, I made the one who's completely silent talk and tell me his name. And I gave my attention to him and not the fiery type. Because I felt like something inside me told me this guy needs to be a little bit more subdued, and this guy needs to be brought up to make this class in balance. Like what you mentioned, we need water here. At the end of the session, he came to me, he said, I like you. He didn't say, I love you. He didn't, he just said, I like you. And I said, I like you too.
Which one said that?
The watery type.
Water.
And that's the fella who had, he was going through therapy. I didn't know. I thought they were just trouble kids, just lively. Because to me, I didn't understand this whole concept of having autism. And I'm not educated or trained. A couple of sessions later, his mother told my wife they had a breakthrough in therapy with the worry type.
Wow.
For over a year, he wouldn't talk. He would go in dead silent.
Oh, wow.
One day he walks in and talks half an hour straight about archery.
Wow.
And the therapist's like, you got to keep doing this. This is doing wonders for him because we've had a breakthrough. Yeah. So that's why I said, but I saw with my own eyes benefit to the watery type. But on the other hand, the fiery type as well has come through as well. He never comes without saying hello. He never leaves without saying goodbye. Both of them. It's a tradition. And I've seen him.
See the fiery would love tradition, you see. And not tradition. Not for tradition's sake, but for the fact that there's a standard here. There's a rule here. Yeah. That's going to bring him some, that's going to, obviously
result.
It brings results and brings benefits.
So that was just my take on it, because you mentioned fiery, and fiery is about controlling the fire if it's too much, and then water is about bringing it up. My question would be as well around. I had this question for my sister to tell you, and then Rayhan to tell you. Alhamdulillah, Allah facilitated that I can ask you this question, which is, in our sport, we couple archery with horses. Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi says, I have become confused to whether you are you or I'm me. Or you are me. Yeah? So when you are riding a horse on horseback archery, you should be confused who is leading. Is it the horse or the rider? But the key is finding balance. In all the sunnah sports, it's finding balance. So how do I find balance when I'm trying to couple a temperament of a human to a temperament of a horse? So should I couple fire with water, human fire with horse water?
Are you familiar with the temperaments of horses? Like, have you?
They definitely have temperaments like us humans.
I know, No, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, they definitely have temperaments.
So I'm just trying to figure out how should we combine humans with animals in temperaments? Should they be like what you said, a fiery type should have a watery horse? Or should a fiery type have a fiery horse?
So the question is this then. What was the step that I said first in this temperament journey?
I so wish I was in the course.
What's the point of the temperament first?
What, the intention?
Knowing
No,
yourself.
no. After the intention and stuff. Once we get into the temperaments, what's the point of knowing temperaments?
Is this meant to be a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question. Like the first thing, I said it in the podcast as well.
I don't know. Balance?
Yeah, is to achieve your own.
Balance.
First, know yourself.
Yeah.
First, it's to know your temperament, so you could be in a healthy version of your temperament.
Yeah.
First, you're at your natural balance. So, as for pairing horses and human beings, the first question is that human being and is that horse, are they in their natural balance?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not, you definitely don't want to pair them up.
So the thing you match is the amount of balance they have, and not necessarily...
Before matching, you see, so for example, if I'm at my natural optimal, then I am ready now to meet the opposite. Yeah? I'm ready to meet the opposite because I'm in my natural balance. If I'm not in my natural balance, what do I need?
Your temperament.
I need my element to achieve my natural balance.
Subhanallah.
Clear?
Jazakallah khair.
So I feel like we're making inroads here in the chaos.
Honestly, I am so grateful for my teachers because what I'm echoing there is not my own knowledge. Honestly, it's like I remember my teacher doing that same thing with people. And if I can do all my teachers, I love them to bits, and If I can just get like 1% of that, so that moment there, by the way, it was quite special for me, because I literally remembered like my teacher having that same moment with when people asked him questions, and I was just watching like, man, how did you do that?
Allah.
Because and did he do that? Amar, there's a verse, right? We were reading there. Yeah, you see, who does? And we think we're files. We're naib files, really. That's for those who know Arabic grammar. It's a little grammar insight. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you might want to start learning Arabic. It's just, it's not even like, there's a couple of reasons why you should learn Arabic. One is obviously if you're a Muslim, you probably should learn it, because it's the Quran, like the book that's been sent down to you. We sent it down in Arabic, and so on, right? And the other thing is honestly, just go with that Sapir-Whorf theory. Like, you get such insights with Arabic that you will rarely ever get with another like, and at the same time, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the other languages aren't worth coming to know, because you would also get other insights with other languages. That's why we know from reading and from our teachers is that historically people, there were some characters who knew like 50 languages. 50 languages, man. One guy, 50 languages, dude. Like, what was he doing with 50? I have teachers who were like, I know some of them, because they got targets, right? And some of them were like, I think they wanted, one of my teachers, I think, was on like 7-8 languages, and just trying to just increase that, so and so what does that give you then? So like, let's just say that's forget temperaments, forget sports, just go with that. Linguistics, if that's your model, then you will come to know different perspectives by learning more languages. And for some people, they'll look at a sports thing and say, right? They'll say temperaments, I'm not too sure. Linguistics, that sounds a lot more like my path. And then I would say, once you've mastered that, get in touch with us, and I'd love to do a module on temperaments with languages. That would be very interesting. And if models match, because sometimes people have asked questions with models that don't match, and I say to them, you can't match all models with other models. But if you've got a 4 thing going on, that's why when you said 4, I was like, Malik, Malik, right? Because when I hear the 4, and that's why when you said to me 4 is a special number, I said, you betcha.
But you said language, and that's very interesting, because the Sahaba that's all they had. They had language and the 4 faculties. And based off that, look what they've achieved.
So next time someone says to you about, this science is so important, ask yourself, what's really important? You had that reflection in your post-workshop testimonial.
Yeah, because I guess for me, it's like you have, you before we started the episode, you mentioned like, you went out and studied. Are you a better person after that? It's something to always think about, because you want to be a better person by you just having these tools, but for what reason? Like, what purpose? So,
good way of assessing whether an action is worth doing or not doing, right? Check its results. And one of the best ways you find results is you look at the guy who's teaching the thing. Does he look like he's in a good place right now?
Not really. No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm serious. No, like, forget temperaments. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Yeah, you'd be like, you don't want to be me, all right? So that's good. That's a good thing. I'm trying to tell you, like, look, I'm a substitute teacher for this. I wish the real guys, the superstars would teach this stuff. But until they do that, we gotta have substitute guys like me, right? But forget me, just other people out there, like with the whole, like you mentioned a bunch of people, yeah, who, I'm just kind of opening this for those who maybe not Muslim and don't know what Sahaba means. Basically, they're a group of people who you consider to be very, very successful, probably the most successful, right? So you are making a judgment saying, well, these people were really good people, right? They were like, I'd love to live like 10% of one of their lives. So I gotta do what they did. It's simple. And that's why, like, if you like, I've seen you post like on about a few people. Like, I stay away from nouns personally, because it opens up doors of like speaking bad about people, etc. And so I'll try to be a bit more objective like that. So I've seen you like mention about a few people, and and people who inspire you, and it's beautiful, right? It's beautiful. And so in that, it's what you've done there is you like this person because what you see with them, you see a goodness. And so you are now, and you naturally then will be like, well, then how do I get to that? And not just you, everyone does that, right? Everyone does that. And that's what you're just doing there. You're saying, and you realize that they didn't have this science or that science or that science. They knew their faculties, right? And they had language, right? Malcolm X, I did the same thing. I was just like, I love Malcolm X. Who doesn't love Malcolm X?
Yeah.
Some people don't like him. Most people like him. And what did he have? Language. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just going back to the idea of like, by your definition, what did I say? The human being's definition is the definition is according to books, like certain books of logic, especially, like they will use this definition because it's a very good definition. It's a really good definition that the human being is a rational animal. That's like that's one of the best definitions to have. It only takes 2 words to define the thing.
SubhanAllah. It's very true, because even with animals, you define them to just be nafsi. Like we have that same primal instincts, but we're just rational.
That's one of the
Very
best ways. Yeah, that's one of the best ways to define a thing, is say what it belongs, which family it belongs to, its genus, and then what makes it different. Right? So that's why definitions will always be what does the thing, like what is it like, but how is it different? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's how most words that are like synonyms almost, but what you do with the two synonyms is you check and you find the parallels between them, but what's different, and then therefore now you know another word. Right? Very interesting, this idea of like again, like definitions. Now, before I go on a tangent about that, just to go back to the hayawan, not the rational animal. So the idea being is that I share with other animals, right, many different features. I eat, I sleep, I drink, loads of things, right? So if I do what they do, I am being the same as them. Right? There's nothing exceptional about me. I am fulfilling my animal side. Right? If I feed that which makes me different to them, then I feed that part of me which is my gift. So what's that which separates me from them is my rational side, my rational faculties, my ability to learn and speak and reason.
But there is also another difference.
There's another
that's physical.
Difference. Yeah.
And it involves balance.
Yeah.
We're the only animal that walks upright.
Upright, yeah.
And that takes balance.
Yeah. And that's another, and he's brought another definition into it, right? He's brought another definition. And trust me, that's what I'm saying. Keep going with this. Like, you can do this. You can do it with the soul idea, right? You can do it with the choice idea, that we're all creatures, but the human being is the creature with choice. One of the definitions is creature with choice, right? So when you actualize your choices, you are now actualizing your humanity more. Same thing with what you just said. Right, you when you do that thing that separates you, when you actually are an upright person, when you stand upright, you are reaching your higher potential, or certainly at least the potential that you have, which is you are a human being, being upright in behavior, or even standing upright. And that's why when you're like in school, your teachers are like, sit up straight, because they're giving you discipline to be a person who sits up straight, right? And sitting up straight, you know, I remember when we used to study in class, and one of my teachers used to say, and sometimes the classes would be like 3 hours, and you know, you sit at the back and you're getting quite tired. And my teacher would say, your outward affects your inward. If outwardly you are sitting upright, inwardly there's a greater attentiveness that you will start to bring about through discipline. But if outwardly you're like this, then inwardly you're going to feel like that. And I was with a little baby the other day, and I was remembering this technique I used to use in putting my nieces and nephews to sleep, was that I would look at them and they would look at me, and I'd look at them and they would look at me, and then what I'd do is I'd do this, right? I don't know, for those who are listening, basically what I would do is my face would change as if I feel like going to sleep. So I would like lower my eyelids, like as if I'm about to sleep, but then I'd kind of wake up. And I noticed that they would do the same thing. Maybe this is like hypnotizing the kids to sleep. I don't know, right? But it was just a good technique, because they're just watching you, and then the kid would feel like that, right? Like yawning. One guy yawns, I guarantee you the other guy will yawn. Yeah. Happens all the time.
Yep.
We're just that's who we are. We're like little, because remember our animal side, we just do what the herd does.
We're social.
Yeah, we're kind of sheepish. And that's why so many sheeples out there, right? And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said, that all of you are shepherds. And all of you have a flock, right? So that means that I'm a shepherd to somebody. I'm also somebody's sheep. And that's okay. It's okay to be a sheep. Just make sure you're a sheep of a good shepherd. But the modern world is, don't be a sheep, be a wolf. And if we're all wolves, it'll become a dog-eat-dog world out there. These are the logical conclusions of those principles.
Yes. Very true.
I wanted to...
Sah am la.
But talking about the 4, I have to share this with you.
Go ahead. Please do.
I didn't know why 4 is so important.
Oh, yeah. I want to hear this.
Because in the classical texts, you know how the classical texts are used as crutches to walk and run. Knowledge was transferred knee to knee. It was, verbal. So, but they leave you dots along the way. As you read the text, you connect the dots and you figure out. But my particular question was, why 4? Why am I doing everything archery in 4?
Seasons
I get, everything is 4.
Yeah.
And then one day I ended up in a heart surgeon's office with a problem with my heart. And he goes, Mr. Karat, and takes up a model of the heart. And he goes, the heart has 4 chambers. And then I forgot everything else he said to me. My mind just went.
Subhanallah.
And I went, so that's it. It's to get my heart straight. The most important organ in my body.
Look at that.
Wow.
Look at that.
Freaked me out. Anyway.
Fireworks right now. I'm just tempering my caloric side. Because I'm on a podcast. They didn't put water here, so I got to bring water within me. Trust me, that is like... Now, for those who are thinking, what are these guys getting excited over? The bloody number 4, right? They're getting all excited over number 4. 4 and all numbers. There's this book, I got at home. And so in the after the liberal arts, like after the trivium comes the quadrivium, right? Oh, I lost you there, didn't I?
No, yeah.
Now you following, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So the quadrivium. So do you know what sciences are in the trivium?
Rhetoric, logic,
and
fourth the other one.
Grammar,
yeah.
Right? You study those and they will be liberating your mind. You study grammar, you learn nuance, you learn context, you learn logic, you learn the ability to reason, definitions, all the stuff that we just kind of mentioned. You study rhetoric, you understand that world isn't only nuances, that the world isn't only context and like there are such things as rhetorical questions that don't always have to be answered. There's a way in which things are said. There's slang. You can't hold people just to exactly to what they say because, so the grammarian inside you is balanced. There's a tempering of the 3, right? This is another model to follow. Some people follow this in education. I certainly, try to do that in my own learning, but also when I teach others as well. But certainly in my own, I try to do my own learning. And this was classical in Western and also Eastern studies, studying the trivium. But after the trivium would come the quadrivium. And in the quadrivium, you have the study of... So imagine, essentially what we're saying for people who understand in a more modern understanding, this is how you make a lit individual, right? This is how you make a lit individual, right? You want to be a lit person. Lit person isn't this is how you make a lit person, is you lit the part of you that makes you special, which is this part, your mind. And one of the ways you make your mind lit is by studying, by coming to learn, coming to know. And I'm not saying that everyone should now go and enroll in a school that teaches classical, education. But I'm saying that you may want to in life just, read a book on it, or just give yourself some time to understand these sciences. Trust me, there was a time when I had no clue about this stuff. And I'm, again, there's people out there who know this stuff inside out. Anyway, just to come back to this 4 thing, there's the quadrivium. And the quadrivium, once you get past the trivium, now you're at the next level. This is lit individuals now. This is how you get to the lit level, right? And what they do is they study the
grammar, logic, rhetoric.
After that, you go on to studying
Suspense.
Astronomy. All right, you study the stars. A little bit of sci-fi in there. All right, you study music, which is what's music? Music is
language. Right?
No. That's poetry, buddy. That's what you did in the first two sections. That's why you were doing poetry at the end of it. Music is applied mathematics.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. It's beats. It's repeating beats. Dum dum tch,
Rhythm,
dum dum
yeah.
tch. Catch that, right? It's a repeating beat. Once I was with one of my teachers in this is gonna be embarrassing. Once one of my teachers in Morocco, and I did just a bit of this in Jordan. Like, we were looking at there's a whole science of this, right? It's like basically all poems are upon these forms or scales or meters upon meters, right? And the meters have a particular fa'ala na da 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 da, right? So what and what you then do is based on this da 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 da, right? You then replace upon there like really good poetry, and that's how you make a banging poem, right? This is what they did. That's why a really good poem that was on a really good meter could be sung at so many different in different tunes. And one of those poems is the poem of the cloak, Qasida Burda, right? It's like a top. Just so many different ways of singing. Oh, no, 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 no. It's just a whole different thing. And then you got na 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 na. Right? There's two different variations. And if you ever get the chance to listen to real Fez singers sing that poem live, if you can, and you follow it with the meaning of each chapter as they switch the meters, it's like it's an experience that you want to not miss out on. Anyway, so that's what music is. When you study music, you study applied number. You study applied mathematics, sequences, algebra. That's what it is. So sorry, what I was saying with my teacher was I said to him, Sheikh, can you continue doing that? And I'm just gonna beatbox with it, with the pattern as well.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like, so when you go like, boom boom tss, boom ba boom tss, right, and it just went boom boom tss, boom ba boom tss. But I put that because it's fa ayn lam, right? So you got three. So I went boom tss, right, and I went boom 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 boom. It was so much fun, and we were laughing our heads off at how it you can find these connections. It's wonderful. The point being is and then, like, so some people will be like, oh, but this sounds like some classical stuff you're always doing this. We live in a world where you learn rhetoric. You've all learned rhetoric if you've watched movies, because it's rhetoricians who are writing the scripts. You listen to politicians or listen to newscasters. They're all reading off some guy who's typing it away who knows his stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not as, don't think it's like some far-fetched stuff. And then the other two sciences were geometry, right? Which is like
spatial awareness.
Number in space, right? Yeah, spatial awareness. And then you have arithmetic or arithmetic, which is like sequence, like time. So time, space, right? And this is
mathematics and direction, rhythm and direction.
Yeah. Now look at how many of those are to do with number. That's why I'm talking about. That's the whole point of that. Yeah. All of that little spiel was for this idea of, so when somebody says 4, and so when I read this book, it says 4, and the whole chapter is so exciting. Then it says, it starts with 1, and then there's all this stuff about 1, then just the number 1. Just the number 1 is such an interesting conversation to have. Then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and you think that we use these numbers all our lives. Well, I'm going to give you just a little snippet, and then we'll move on to whatever question you have next. Just a little snippet, okay, and it's going to be very short. In number 1, the question I ask everyone here is 1 even a number? And everyone's going to, we can maybe pause this for 30 seconds and think about it, or maybe 2 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes, or have a conversation with somebody and come back to this point. I've assumed that you've come back to it. 1 is not a number. Mic drop. Or mic left where it is. And all I'm saying there, I know I've lost everyone, but I'm saying to you is if you start this journey, you will know the answer. And imagine those lit individuals who know that stuff, and then they look at us saying, oh, of course one's a number, and they're like, ah.
Yeah.
Trust me, man, there's like people out there, like I remember one of our teachers, he said he went to Mauritania and he said he couldn't believe that there were these people who were living in a society that was quite different to his, but they were such masters in grammar. They were so refined, and they found like a refinement through these sciences. You see, it's not like refinement isn't by, the particular of your refinement. There's different ways to be refined. Yeah. And maybe that one gives you more refinement than this. Me currently in my age, I may regret this statement in the future, but me currently I just take the best of both. That's my thing. So I don't just stick to myself, just to the classical stuff. I also look at what's going on in the advancements of the age, because I also find good things on this side and that side. So me personally, my philosophy is, like what I've learned from my teachers, is take the good of wherever it is. Last time I checked, the Prophet told me that was my property anyway. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? That's already, we already, it's yours. Just go take it.
Ahmed, do you have anything that from Archery that could kind of relate to all the points that were being made?
It all stems back to, I think, knowing yourself before moving forward, and that boils down to the why. Why are we doing this? And the really good thing about why people do archery isn't necessarily to hit the bullseye. It's to make yourself a better person, conquer your
I think you
desires.
told me this when I was taking.
I have a question for him.
Okay,
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Where did you get this why from? This idea of why? Where did you come to this conclusion?
Stance. Why?
Like, where did why come? Like, you said why.
Why are you here? Why are we here on
But
this
how
earth?
did you come to that conclusion?
Through my teachers. I did not come to this conclusion. It was told to me.
Yeah. By your teachers.
Yes.
But see, I find that fascinating, because what do we do at the start of the Knowing Yourself workshop?
Intentions.
Yeah, not just intentions. What do we do? We do the whys.
Yeah.
The first question before even your intention is why are you here? We have this whole mad session on why that's what I wanted to ask. Like, did you find out we do that, or did you just?
No.
Hey, look at that! It's crazy.
Yeah.
He's saying why. Trust me, he just said what we do is before you know yourself. I spend 45 minutes on why you're even here. Bam, we just cane everyone. It's just
funny story. I want to bring this up because I brought my mom to the workshop.
Put it there, brother.
I brought my mom to
the same page.
We're on this question of like, why are you here? And Sidi Ishaq didn't know that my mom was in the crowd. So, and then you randomly asked my mom like, oh, why are you here? And then she just blurts out everything. Oh, my son brought me here. Everything. I'm like, oh no. And then you asked the interesting question after that, because she answered like the why is because my son brought me here. It's like, why did you come? Oh, sorry.
Why did you then decide to be here? Was it simply just for your son?
Yeah. Like, why was it that you came for your son?
Yeah.
I'm like, bruh, subhanAllah.
Right. So at that point, she would just assume, well, I'm here just for my son. But the question is, well, why did you still come though?
You dig deeper.
Like
right. Like, why are you here for your son? Do you know what I mean? And whatever answer then you then get, I bet it touched his heart. And I bet it touched her heart, hearing her own state. That's all she ever did really at that point, was explore what already was there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because that first part of the why session is we look at what already is. Then the second part of the why session is we add more onto it.
You peel back and then you put on.
And then you put on.
Is it ever...
No, he knows.
Is it never ending?
He knows
the why and the why you keep going and going. That's the only thing.
It potentially can be never ending, and that's why we do like 3 or 4 and then we move on. Because we're not, it's not like see this. Look, one of the things we study in the quadrivium and the whole idea of time and being time-bound beings is that, that's why we don't become obsessed with things, is because we're time-bound beings. There's a time for everything. There's a time for the whys. And there comes a point where the why time runs out, and now it's what, and now it's how, and now it's and then you just keep, as in get a move on. It's not always about, but when you're moving on, now it's time to slow down, right, to achieve the optimal balance for yourself. That's why the why practice should never stop. If anyone's ever been to the workshop and you did the why bit, if that was the only time you ever did it in your life, you did not take it properly. The point was that you continue to do that in your life. It's not that you just do it once and that's it at the workshop. You should be asking yourself, why do I want this job? You see, it's not always about finding bad things. That's my point. What she said eventually was, she was like, so what the conclusion was that she is at the workshop not for her son. She's at the workshop because she is willing to sit for 5 hours to support and love her son. That's why she was there. You know, it wasn't about knowing herself. Trust me, she's all right anyway. Right? She sat there for 5 hours for the sake of her son. And you know what, Junior? If that hits us, trust me, she's done way more than that for us.
Very true.
Right? She's done way more than that. 5 hours should be like, wow. Honestly, you know, the mom right now would be like, what's the big deal? 5 hours for my son. I'll do anything for my son.
I carried him for 9 months.
Yeah.
Though I feel bad. Like I wanted to ask a question. It's not going to relate to my mom, but I feel like I should for Adab's sake. But anyways, like even though with the why, us asking the why as humans, that would make us rational, right? So the animal, would they be able to ask the why? So asking the why also relates to
anything to do with thinking now is the rational part of you. Point is being conscious rather than acting subconscious. That's what
exactly. Animals do that. Like
animals are just doing right
from the instincts.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So like that kind of different. Even asking the why is like what I'm trying to relate to is humans. Some humans don't ask the why. They just go about doing things in life.
And what do we say? What do we call those people? Do we call them acting human-like? Do we call them acting animal-like? No, we call them. What do we say? Acting robotic. Like systems and functions and machines only. You're a human being. And so what does that mean now? That doesn't mean that you're simply being instinctive. That's another time when you're being instinctive, right? Acting like an animal. Then there's the other time when you act like a human being, when you think. And then there's robotic. You know what robotic is? Someone plugged in some information into you, right? Some data, and you are just following orders.
So the knowledge is not alive,
right? It's not alive. It's not what we'd call like knowledge. We'd call that data.
Well,
hashtag Star Trek, right? Like data in Star Trek. I mean, if anyone's ever seen it, I didn't even watch it much, but I just know that the guy was like, basically he was the robot human, and he couldn't, you know, feelings, things like that were a bit more of a challenge for him. And that's what happens, right? You become so robotic that you lose that sense of like senses almost because of a robot, right? What happens? Let's use the Tin Man example. What did Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, what did he always want? He wanted a heart. When you become too much of a robot, you lose your heart.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Let's just have a group hug.
I was reflecting on the people who are interpreting Quran only in a literal way, and I think they also need a hug. Right. They need a bit of a heart.
Yeah, it's almost like robotic, isn't it?
Very robotic. It's like a tape recorder.
Right. Imagine those guys who do like a Friday sermon and it's like play. You know what they should have done? They should have had a conversation with the audience members before or after last week's session and sat with them. Maybe even gone out with a few of them and had a meal with them. Right? See what's going on with them. Once you find out how they're doing, this is what you do. I know. I already know this now. Like, this is what he does. He knows the person, and therefore, then his whole aim is anyone who truly is in a service to people. See, the thing is, those people don't understand that. Don't assume that they're bad. They just didn't know that that's what they should be doing. They were taught that we just got to be tape recorders, and you know, I got a whole book of like speeches to do. Combine your speech knowledge. I'm not saying like lose it. The whole point of all your studies was that you become like a super OG in terms of like what you know, but combine that with what's actually going on and you watch the difference. Then what you're speaking about will actually be relevant, and all of a sudden there'll be a change, and you know, people will really be benefiting, and then people will be saying all this amazing stuff about you, and you're like, listen, relax, I ain't amazing, I'm just speaking to you. And so what does that mean? That all people need and all they're after is someone who just speaks to them and understands them. And anyone who speaks and understands them, they're going to love that guy.
And sometimes we judge from our own sort of perspective, and ties on with the 4 temperaments, that we're unable to kind of go out of our sort of perspective and really truly help them. We're just kind of only wanting it to see it from our perspective.
Yeah. And look at what you just said as well. The fact that we help them. If you're a true service person, you understand that you don't help them, buddy. They help you.
Yes.
Subhanallah. Yeah.
So you say to them, right? You extend your hand out to them, and they'll be thinking that they are that you're helping them, right? But what's really happening is they're helping you. Trust me, man. I'm telling you. Like, if I learned anything from my teachers, it was that we don't do this stuff. Trust me, none of us do this stuff because we're qualified. We do it because I need this. I need to do this. As much as you need to know yourself, I need to help you. Like, I need to be of service to you. And in being of service to you, do you think like I don't learn like loads of stuff in the workshops? Remember what was I doing in the Sunday one? I was sitting at the back while presentations were going on and making notes. There was an assessment, right? I said it. I was making notes of what their findings were. Everyone's your teacher.
Do you find similar sort of train of thought as well when it comes to teaching archery?
100%. I cannot stress how true that is and how much I've learned about myself. But now I'm going to introduce probably something a little bit foreign.
Go for it.
Horses have taught me more than people.
SubhanAllah. Now this is for those who know, I was going to say yes. I wasn't going to do it, but I thought, what the heck. Not because it's true, because there's please tell us more.
Well, in prophetic as well, the Prophet said, alayhi salam, dealing with horses will teach you dealing with people. So I learned a lot about how I should be with people to be more appropriate and to give them their haqq from horses.
Wow.
Here's an animal that is much more powerful than me, that can kill me.
Wow.
A horse can kill me easily. It can kill you.
Wow.
And it's letting me, don't think that you are breaking a horse. You're not. This horse is letting me go on its back. Why do you think the Prophet said the hire is in the forelock of the horse? Forelock is a place, this place here, on the forehead, is where a horse's blind spot is. It can't see you, because horses can only see here. Front and back, they can't see. That's why they're turning all the time. So when it completely surrenders to you and connects and trusts you,
wow,
it will only allow you to come to the forehead and touch it. So for you to gain the horse's trust, you have to be in balance. And then when you get on, you have to tell the horse, and you don't have language. With people, you have language. You're blessed. You have language.
wow.
I went the other day, I went to my wife just out of the blue and I said, I love you. And she looks at me, what's going on? Why are you saying I love you just like that? Because I forget. I said, look, I was on my horse and I was fascinated. I was riding, stop, start, go, turn left, turn right. And by the way, we don't use a bit in the mouth, the metal piece. We use our legs to stir a horse and our balance. Because horse riding and with archery, you let the horse go. You're not controlling it fully. So you trust the horse as well. I said, I'm not talking the language and it's listening to me. Go, stop, start, turn left. But I have language with you and I don't use it enough. So definitely what you're saying is 100%.
Would you say that horses have an emotional intelligence?
100, and they can tell us. They can read us better than humans.
Wow.
Okay, I want to. This is like a social experiment, so this isn't confirmed. Okay, but those who are listening, you have this advantage. We don't. Go back to when he just started speaking about that, and go with: is a horse's temperament primarily like the horse, not just a specific horse, but horses? Are they sanguine, choleric? Everything he said there confirmed for me as he was saying it that there's a sanguine cholericness to a horse.
Wow. Allah
Go back and just try this. I could be wrong. All right, let's just get that out there. But go back and listen to all of that he said.
Fire, air.
Like there's an airy to them, and then there's a fire behind that. But it's almost like there's a sensitivity. The other thing was interesting when he said that they don't see straight, like a sang right? And then they're always just distracted or whatever. What's also interesting is anyone can just jump on them, and then if they play them right, they'll take them on a like that's the sang. Like that's what sangs are. If someone comes and you know caresses them in the right way, and like they'll get won over quite quickly. The people pleasing idea, like as in someone can win them over, because there's also horses can also be a bit stubborn.
So there's different races in horses.
Okay, that's probably
and
more towards that.
And you know there's a physical aspect to it as well. They did research because Arabian horses tend to be sanguine choleric. And when you trace back all horses, the fadl, the best of the horse, like when you're judging a horse, you judge it back to the Arabian horse.
Boom.
Wow.
Did you catch that?
Wow.
Like,
oh my goodness.
You see what I'm saying? Because obviously there are going to be variations. And again, just to remind everyone, the way to use these terms is to use them as energies, displaying energies. Sanguine choleric is like not like he's a sanguine choleric like you, like another sanguine choleric, the horses. No, it's displaying a sanguine and a choleric energy. I want to get this out there to whoever listens, and I hope people are listening to this for this section. Never use temperaments to categorize people, but to understand energies. That's the whole point of this, is to understand an energy that's being displayed. And generally, other people's temperaments are not your business. Just to remind people.
So that was you know how I wanted to ask you a question from the first workshop, was ethnicities having different temperaments.
Yeah.
Would that also come into the fold? Like us as people, different ethnicities will tend to have a different, a similar temperament.
I'm going to be very careful what I say now. I would say that I think there is a truth to it. Like there is certainly, you can see certain
because I'll speak from my experience,
could be of
with Desis generally, like I know some like exceptions to the rule in that they tend to be phlegmatic Desi males from my, or maybe Bengalis, maybe I'm seeing more from Bengalis. I feel that they're more phlegmatic.
And I'm sure that there are people out there who would probably agree with what you just said. What I would say is, I think because what I literally said before this was that it's about identifying energies of behavior more than labeling of people. That's why I try to tend to stay away from that. But there is certainly, like, I do find, for example, those who know Punjabi people generally have a little bit of a sanguineous energy with them. Again, remember, generally, the key word here is they are, or they generally are. Like that's the word here is generally. The whole idea is you're getting a sense of nature, not an actual, you can, that's why labels are when you're like discrete, like boom, that is it, right? This is saying that energy is it, and it could be displayed, or is sometimes displayed, or sometimes displayed often.
I have a different take on that, because I was told that most people from Kavkaz and Balkan are Safrawi. He told me, he said that's just because of your diet.
Yeah, well, that's what they would say, yeah. And so what's the diet of them? Check this out. You watch this. What's the diet of the Bengali people?
Curry?
Yeah.
Rice?
Curry.
What is it?
Fish as well.
Fish and rice?
Yeah, like chicken.
Yeah. No, I mean, everyone eats everything.
Yeah.
What would you say is one of the things that they eat a lot? I'm going to get
rice.
stick, right? Rice, yeah. And rice, what's the temperament of rice, would you say?
Is it more like
flag? I tried not to get into this whole area here.
So it's
this whole territory, because I don't want people like labeling like, oh my gosh, so therefore because
of course,
like, cold and moist, and therefore fish.
Our listeners are they're balanced. They're balanced.
Because if they're imbalanced, they misunderstand what we're saying. May we all have balance. Right, because when you have balance, you're in a healthy state. So then you make excuses, blah blah blah. You understand. If you're in an imbalanced state, you don't you make excuses. You sort of attack people to that. It's like it's quite dangerous. But yeah, I definitely. I mean, you can see that, right?
So the diet plays like you during class. You also mentioned a very interesting story where you're in, I think, in naturopathy class, and cutting up. It was the chilies, and then you weren't the only one
Yeah,
crying,
we
and
were
everyone else
grinding,
was
we're grinding spices.
grinding spices. Yeah, and then subhanallah, you actually related that to the fact that you deal with kids more.
Yeah,
The
teenagers.
maybe caloric
energy
energy.
is a teenage
So
energy.
that actually plays a role
So-
even with the food.
Right, yeah. So basically, the story goes that we were grinding the spices. Specifically, which spice? It was the dry chilies. Now, dry chilies is a very caloric. They have a caloric energy, and so many people who were grinding the spices, they were in tears. Fire. And they were in tears as they were grinding the spices. Their eyes were watering. And I wasn't, and that was because I've been dealing with fire like since I was 17.
Yeah.
Well,
Whilst I was dealing with my own fire, but also the fire of others. So
Become immune to or more resistant.
more resistant, more used to. Right, I was used to it. Right, so it was just I just found it fascinating. I didn't really mention it to my teacher. I probably should have mentioned it. I just was like, because we were writing reflections, and it was one of my reflections.
I have to ask a question because you mentioned something that kind of triggered something in me. You said that teenager is choleric fire. So there are obviously 4 stages to life. There's tufula, futuwa, shabab, and then maturity, or I guess old age.
Yeah.
How would you? Yes, and what would you call which, and how would you kind of define them?
Now, if you went to the workshop, you would know.
So I'm buying a ticket to Melbourne.
Yeah, no, Bismillah. I mean, it's like, again, this isn't like just maybe also worth sharing is none of this is exclusively my own. There's knowledge is out there. You don't need to come to this particular workshop. You can go to any workshop. This one just happens to have really good reviews.
yes.
Yeah, but other books have brilliant reviews. I recommend the books always. I've used the books to put this thing together. It wasn't like I sat up and boom, it just came from the sky. So, just to get that out there, and I always mention in the classes that all the work is from books. Even yesterday's part 2 that we launched, well, not yesterday, Sunday's part 2. I was reminding people that, it's already in the books. It's just that if you don't read the books, then you might want to go to workshops.
Yeah.
So, Sanguine is the youth age, and I'll test him now with the rest of them.
Melancholic is in the adult, like the latest part of your life. Choleric is more younger, and phleg is in the middle.
Right, so let's do that with the did you catch that with the elements?
I got it.
So air is when we're younger,
Yeah.
fire is the teenagers, earth is adult life, and then water is
When you get old.
when you're older.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought melancholic was
That's why
old.
the ulama
Melancholic is adult
Adult,
life,
yeah, okay, cool,
but
cool.
old age is water.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why the ulama said when kids are 0 to 7, you nurture and play, with them. 7 to puberty, you discipline them. And then puberty onwards, you're their friend. That's crazy, man.
What he's just done there is, what has he done regarding models? He's just combining the models and looking. What we're saying here is what we did with the sports was, this was the model, like my hand, and then I'm just for the listeners, and then imagine my hand being placed in a slightly like rotated 90 degrees, the other hand, and being placed over it, and look at my fingertips. It creates like a mesh of some sort.
Yeah.
Right. That is now almost a new framework I've created. It's like temperaments and sports, right? So what he just did now was he did it with education, right? He just did temperaments and education, and he just got boom. Oh wow, we see like a connection there, right?
Subhanallah. Honestly, this is like the fabric that joins things together. And I told my Melbourne students, I said, you have to, like, this is an order. I don't give you orders. I give you order. You have to go to this course. I was not able. It wasn't laziness. Allah is my witness, but I wasn't able to go. You go, because this makes a difference in your life. And it will make a difference in everything you do. If, of course, if your heart's in the right place.
That's why we've been speaking from like a, somewhat of a faith-based perspective. And maybe because the audience is mostly of the same faith and the speakers are. But we also, through the work that we do and the organizations that we work, the organizations that I work for as well, is doing it with a range of audiences that are not always of this particular faith and are not always,
Same as archery.
yearning to play sports.
How many people came that are like, right? Even the Olympic archer guy, he came in to your archery range. So
that's what we need to do as well. Is like, that's why I'm always careful of like terms that we use, because it's a universal thing. Right, 100%. You saw at the end about the universal, like it's all about universalities, and if you ever really want to share like good, you gotta look at like how you can share this, that's like of a universal benefit rather than a particular benefit, because then you're just pigeonholing the thing, especially if your stuff is good. Like we also do like corporate stuff, corporate training, which is like how people can use this within teams, right? Effective teams, effective leadership. We also do professional training for teachers. Right, styles of learning for each of the temperaments. It's a day-long workshop, but it's the real benefit.
With the madhabs of archery, I was just wondering if it could have relate to the 4 temperaments as well, because you said there's
the madhabs are physical,
but could they somehow maybe make a
no. The way that we were taught madhabs is rahmah, because one guy was short and stout, another one was medium, and the last was tall. So if we were all to do archery in one particular way, somebody would be at a disadvantage.
Like in general.
So this is rahmah in general. But in terms of the temperaments, I'm not aware of the madhabs mentioning, because in archery there's madhabs.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, interesting.
So I was trying to see if there's a connection.
No, not to my knowledge. No.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like I always try to tell people as well, is let the connection naturally form and don't force it. Sometimes there aren't connections, and it's okay. But it's always good to do what you just did there, which is explore. It's part of learning. It's part of life. I want to
explore another thing quickly before I forget.
This
is a bit like specific, and I kind of thought it through. I've been actually thinking about this over the weekend. Imam Ghazali in his Deliverance for Error, he talks about dhawq, tasting, experiencing, and that's attaining truth and hanging with the Sufis, and that's where the ultimate truth lies, in that experience. I don't know if you've thought about this or not, but does that stem from his phlegmatic nature, possibly, in the sense that he's valuing that experience? And I felt that perhaps phlegmatic characters may be in tune. I'm not saying that's not, I'm just saying that's one way to view that truth, you get what I mean? Or to attain that truth.
First, I'd say I don't know. I don't know what was going on with him that much. Like, I read the book and I love it. I think I recommended it on the last one, didn't I? No? Well, anyway, like if you haven't read Deliverance from Error, then you really should. But one can appreciate that particular concept that you just mentioned of the Sufi people and their arrival to truth, as they claim. One can come to that conclusion. From a range of experiences. It could be an observant, phlegmatic energy. It could be a studied, melancholic one, which eventually would say, maybe studying won't arrive me to that particular truth. It could be a sanguineous energy, which is he tasted it, therefore he said it. Right? It could be a choleric, is he clearly observed the difference. I'm just, but what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when with questions like that, it's worth exploring, and in exploring further, you might find that there's a number of routes. And for me, that's what Temperaments is that it gives everyone the opportunity to arrive to a particular thing. Let's say it's not like, tasting the truth or experiencing truth that Imam Ghazali mentioned, but it's simply driving a car fast. Right? How would a choleric reach driving a car fast? You probably could work it out. A melancholic, how would they be driving a car fast? So it's like anything that you want to do in life, you just gotta understand your energy and understand what that energy wants. Everyone can do that. Some would probably be more prone, like definitely like a sanguineous energy would probably be drawn to that because it's dhawqi, it's tasteful.
Yeah.
And a sang would be like, you just gotta taste it. Just taste the ishq. Taste the hub.
Yeah. Like there's we're kind of heading the end of our episode. We've got like 10 minutes, but I do want to...
Definitely good idea.
I want to ask 2 important questions. Actually, these are my first 2 questions I was going to ask, but I let the conversation go because it was organic, mashallah. I'll probably leave my experience of the workshop probably at the end. The first one I do want to ask is, it was really interesting that you talked about certain temperaments and the likelihood of them suffering depression or anxiety, obsession, all those sort of things, and you link that with certain temperaments.
Yeah. So I was speaking to one of my teachers, and there's a particular book, a classical book by Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, Sustenance of the Soul, translated by Malik Badri. This book, in that he mentions, it's basically like behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and in that he recognizes 4 mental illnesses that people can be in. There are 4 mental illnesses, like chief mental illnesses, 4 of them. And when I was reading it, naturally I tried my 4 on top of the 4, and I found it to be consistent. I went to one of my teachers and I said, like as if I made a discovery, I was like, hey, like there's an overlap here. And he said, he looked at me and he said, where do you think you got it from? So it was definitely from the temperaments. So we know that there is most certainly there's a German professor, researcher, and I like his model, and he Professor, I don't know how to pronounce his surname, so I'm not going to try. I think it's anyway. He has this model, and you can see connections to habits and behavior, and it starts with thoughts that become behavior, that becomes habits, that becomes your character. If that thought is bad, the behavior is bad, the habits are bad, the character becomes bad. And then what happens when you have bad character? You do an injustice upon yourself, and that can lead to almost a solidified, not solidified, but certainly a strong bad state to be in, which would be maybe considered a mental illness. So it's, again, just for people to consider, not like completely absolute. There are frameworks of complete absolutes. This is one that has some, but it's not, sort of projecting the absolute onto everyone.
But to just kind of consider that perspective as well, because it blew my mind when you were linking that to the 4 temperaments, because a lot of questions that I guess modern psychologists and stuff, just I don't feel that they've gone to the bottom of, this kind of presents in a different light.
Yeah, well, last year when I came to Sydney, there was a psychologist who came to it. There was a couple of them, and this year she came to part 2, and and last year I asked her, what do you think? And she said, well, it sounds right, but there's a lot of other factors. I said, absolutely. And she said, I'm going to give it a go. I said, I saw her this year. I said, how was it? And she said, well, first I asked her about part 2. I said, how was part 2? She said, you hit the nail on the head, right? And then I said, I was like, I really value your opinion. Obviously, you're a professional in this area. And she said, she said, she said, I have been using the temperaments in my clinic in helping people as a psychologist, professional psychologist. She's considering temperaments as well. And that's what I keep saying to everyone, is take this science and combine it with your own fields and watch you make further discoveries. Temperaments isn't everything, but temperament is a factor that cannot be ignored.
It's a catalyst. It helps
in understanding the person. Yeah, most
even
certainly.
Like, I'm not really learning anything, but even because I play cricket, I'm starting to see it through cricket as well.
Mate, I grew up in a household with cricketers.
Yeah,
my old man, he's got a cricket academy.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah. And so, cricket was all a part of my life, and I most certainly worked out which temperaments are drawn to. I'm also sometimes skeptical, because sometimes what happens is we can draw from our experiences and project that onto the science and the study.
Yeah.
So I'm always careful that we don't do that,
sense.
Right? That we take our like experiences, be it good or bad, right, positives or negatives, and then project that and say, aha, right? I try not to do that, but I have been a little bit critical, and I always try to do tests on this. Someone should do research, maybe someone can do research on this, but I think that sports have temperaments as well. there's energies that are displayed, and I do believe that cricket along with snooker are of a particular type of a temperament or like energy that's displayed.
Can I guess?
And football is different. You can guess all day, buddy.
Because I like, that's what I see. That's how I relate to it.
Yeah.
So that's my reasoning, but that's not.
I was
my
going to
reason.
say choleric
For what sport?
for snooker.
I don't think so.
Mm.
But I also think,
I think
that,
it's.
Oh
Like,
no, it's the opposite. Sorry, it's water.
Yeah.
Water.
I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you why my
I have a
reasoning. Like in
problem.
cricket, I witnessed that Test cricketers, the best batsmen in the world, were generally smart people and they're very intelligent people. Like in the
So
sense
why
of
did you say phleg? When you
oh,
say melancholic. And if you had said melancholic, I would have said I agree.
It is melancholic. Yeah, I agree. Because I know people have done like law degrees in that, and
Yeah,
their cricketers. Sangakkara is one example. So that's
and
so
also
that's-
what you find is like, look, just and you know, people might be listening to this thinking, what are they talking about? First they're saying there's temperaments, there's another saying there's temperament. A cricket has a temperament, like bloody hell, give things a break, right? You might be thinking that. Next time, once you've been to the workshop, and you've been to it a couple of times, because you
Yeah, you
cannot
have to
do
be
this
a couple of
workshop
times.
once, you gotta go to it at least. My recommendation is, if you don't read the books, come to the workshop 3 times.
Like even I'll just speak from my experience. Like I already had an understanding. I read like God. I haven't read all of Temperament God gave you, but I read pages. So I had an understanding. Even after that, and then I did the podcast. Even after all that, doing your first workshop, I still have to process it and go again.
Yeah.
Like I had that foundation, but it's about. Because you're bringing relevant examples, so I'm starting to think, okay, how does this relate to my life? What moved, like, why do I make this first move when I encounter X situation? So I have to like unwind a lot of the things, and I have to think through it a lot more. So I feel like one is just not enough. I have to go again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely, but again, and then so once you've been to it, then you can play cricket, and then you can sort of assess what energy am I sort of sensing from this, and that's something. Once you like, you've worked out your own temperament, you've gone through the stages, right? You don't go and start assessing certain things. You got to go through the stages. When we did it with our teacher, we looked at epistemology first before anything else.
Well,
Epistemology.
Like how we even take knowledge in the first place.
Yes.
What are the ways of which we take knowledge and process knowledge?
I know like we do actually have to wrap up, but I've saved this one for the last part, and I want to share this with you. In terms of, this was one moment in the workshop you were mentioning, I forgot it was the first or second, but you mentioned different temperaments, how they'd react if they were in the presence of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That was subhanallah. So this actually like took me to a different dimension. So I'll explain like why I'm saying this specifically, because it sort of touched my heart, and I didn't really say this to you. But you mentioned how the choleric would kind of go at kind of ask the question directly, but if the melancholic was with Rasulullah, they would kind of nudge the choleric, being like, "Why are you asking this? Have some akhlaq or whatever, right?" But you said something very interesting about the flag, and you kind of snuck it in before you went into your next topic that you were explaining in the workshop. You said that the flag would just want to experience the moment, and then I was tearing up, but I don't think you noticed. But
I didn't notice, no.
I covered it up because Dean, when you listen to the Sirah lectures or read the books, and you have that longing to be in the presence of Rasulullah, when you're saying, like, for me, when how you also mentioned in the workshop that you've been to a place before you go to a place, you've already been there in your mind. You've already been to the place in your mind. So for me, it was like, I don't like, if I inshallah get the opportunity to be in the presence of Rasulullah, and I've kind of had it in my mind, right? I've always been like, I don't even have a question. I just want to experience the moment. And when he said that, subhanallah, that I was almost going to break down, subhanallah. Like that, when you related 4 temperaments to that, because I thought it was just a general thing, because I don't have that, because the workshop was about getting different perspectives, and that kind of opened my mind to think things a lot deeper. But when you said that, I just assumed everyone just wants to be like, obviously we do want to be in the presence, but the experience part, like you want to experience the moment. I thought that was a general thing for everyone. But when you said that it was a phlegmatic, and I was relating to it, and it just, subhanallah, like it was just subhanallah, like it was. So that then realizing as well, like different temperaments and how to want to go about,
first of all,
could you elaborate just a bit
yeah,
about
I will
what
a
you
little
said?
bit, yeah. I mean, it's just like with temperament, it's what manifests in behavior. It's not who, like, you know, you're not defined by your temperament. It's just what's appearing in subconscious behavior. That's what temperaments are. So if you're refined or you've had particular nurture, you may not respond in that way that we just said. Again, these are just general, you know, just sort of general behavioral responses that may happen, right? That's a little, you know, qualifier for that. But also, and then also to remember that we have all four temperaments, all four energies are within us anyway. So to be honest with you, all of us would probably flag out, right, in that situation. And I think that's the kind of like, that's part of the learning of it, and also how it will just hit you a little bit more. You know, that's the point of it. So, you know, that's that, you know, like everyone would hear that differently, like to some degree. And so that's beautiful. You know, thank you for sharing that as well. And one thing I just want to also mention is, you said like you nearly broke down, and I was going to just say, you know, is there anything else worth breaking down to? Why hold back at that point, man?
Because
bro, like, wallah, if you're gonna break down at anything, bro, that's I mean, you know, if your tears were created for anything, bro, like that's what it was created for, man. And you know, breaking down for the right things is not a negative in any way. It's a beautiful thing. It's a release. It's an expression. And you may have potentially, by holding back, you may have, you know, not gifted others the opportunity to also have shared in what you experienced. So maybe it's just
to me, it's like, it's all about that experience that I want to be in that presence, just to experience. Like for people, maybe different, but it just hit me so hard then.
Well, thank you for sharing it now. I mean, it hit us when you said it. And one of the interesting things about reliving experiences is when we relive experiences by telling people, we relive the states that were also with us at that point. And so when you relive that state, your state changed as you said it, and you gifted us a state, because I guarantee you my state changed and your state changed as well, as that was said.
We'll probably
have to, and people who are listening as well.
Yeah, I know. Like we probably have to wrap it up here.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Yeah,
but alhamdulillah, like I probably have to actually listen to this myself a couple of times as well. Like it was just beautiful. The relationships, the connections, different perspectives, different ideas, different frameworks about discussing the same thing. Like subhanallah, like I do really have to.
Yeah, parallels, isn't it? Parallels, man.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I had to get Ahmed on the.
It was my honor.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I'm sad that he didn't share more. That's probably my fault.
No.
You guys can connect, inshallah. There's so much more to discuss.
Yeah, but you know, everyone should have heard him more than me, man.
Astaghfirullah.
The curse.
But jazakallah khair, both of you. I don't know who's the guest or who's the co-host on this one. I think we're all. I was just the co-host. You guys were the guests, alhamdulillah. But
I feel like I'm at home. So it's Ustad Mohammed.
Oh well, you guys made me feel like I was at home as well. So let's all just have a group hug. I was gonna say though that like I you know, I don't know how you got me back into another podcast, man, because I didn't even want to know what time this one is, but like I wasn't planning on doing another podcast, so I don't know how you did it,
for that.
No,
appreciate the time.
Maybe next time, maybe when I come to Australia, hopefully I'll have the pleasure of not being on the podcast.
Sure, we'll
inshallah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So for our listeners, thank you for giving us your attention. Just one thing.
If you want Malik back on the podcast, then make sure you comment on whatever platform this is on, or message, because I told him to be on there. He had a valid excuse. He had a valid excuse, but you know,
but he could have been,
you know. So,
alhamdulillah. But for our listeners, thank you for giving us your attention. If you have any questions or queries, feel free to email us at info@boysinthecave.com, and you can check us out on Patreon, inshallah, if you want to support this project. Alhamdulillah, shout out to Maydaan Avenue for giving us the space to kind of record this episode. They've actually hosted Sidi Mohammed Isaaq at their place, so it was really, really a special event, and I recommend people check it out. And how many are you gonna come again? Yeah, how many times in every 2 months, inshallah?
Yeah, if the flight was quicker, I would be every 2 months. But with that flight, I don't know.
But definitely check out. I'll pull the links to Sidi Ishaq and even Ahmed Karat's details on our show notes, inshallah. So for our special guest, Ahmed Karat, and Mohammed Isaaq and myself, we wish you all the best. This is Tanzim signing off. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.